Durin's nearly here and he's one of the most exciting characters we've had in a long time. To be honest, I've been a little underwhelmed with the DPSs recently and how restrictive they are in terms of team building, but we smashed it with the supports. Escoffier, Ineffa and Lauma have all done big things for shaking up the meta and bringing some non-meta characters into the conversation, and Durin's another one of those. So, what does he do, how do we play him, and what build does he need? Basically, he's an off-field damage dealer and buffer. The way you play him is you press his skill and now you have two options. Press skill again to enter white mode or press normal attack instead to enter black mode. Whichever mode you choose deals pyro damage and regenerates energy for his burst. He has two different bursts, one for white mode and one for black mode. White mode deals AoE pyro damage on tick, black mode is single target damage on tick. They both work off field too. His passive gives buffs depending on which mode you use his burst in as well. For white mode, when party members trigger burning, overloaded, pyro swirl or pyro crystallize on an opponent, that opponent's resistance to pyro and the other elements is reduced by 20% for 6 seconds. In black mode, Durin's vape and melt damage is increased by 40%. Another passive increases his burst damage, scaling off his attack. If you want to max it out, you'll need 2500, but I wouldn't go out your way to chase it because you'll get a lot of attack anyway. His last passive gives Hexencircle buffs. So when the team has at least 2 Hexencircle members, the buffs from each mode are increased by 75%. So 35% resistance shred with white mode, 70% vape and melt damage for Durin in black mode. We'll talk more about teams in the team section, but for now, Hexencircle members are Durin, Albedo, Venti, Mona, Klee, Sucrose, Razor and Fischl, and all of them will be getting buffs in Luna III. It's likely we'll get more Hexencircle members in the future too, like Alice and Nicole. Okay, so to summarise how to play Durin, press skill, burst for white mode, where he deals off-field AoE pyro damage on tick and shreds resistances to pyro and the other elements we mentioned. Press skill normal attack burst for black mode, where he deals off-field single target damage on tick and increases his own vape and melt damage. His stats are pretty typical: attack sands, pyro goblet, crit circlet. For artifacts, give him 4-piece noblesse if you don't already have a holder in the team. If you do already have a noblesse holder, you could go 4-piece emblem or 2-piece noblesse, 2-piece crimson witch for his own damage. I imagine he'll get a new set at some point though, maybe when Columbina drops. In terms of weapons, his signature is his best with 608 attack, 33.1% crit rate. It increases his burst crit damage by 16%, his attack by 20%, and the active character's attack by 16%. When there are at least 2 Hexencircle members in the team, Durin gets another 15% attack and the on-fielder gets another 12% attack. If you don't have the signature, other 5-star crit swords are good stat sticks, but the weapon passives don't have any perfect synergies. Freedom Swan has 608 base attack, which is the same as his weapon, but also has 198 elemental mastery. This could be useful on him in black mode, where he wants to vape and melt. He'll also give the on-fielder 20% attack and 16% normal, charged and plunge attack damage. For 4 stars you could give him Wolffang from the Battle Pass. It gives him 27.6% crit rate and at R5 gives him 32% burst damage and up to an extra 16% crit rate. Lion's Roar isn't bad either. It gives attack as your substat and at R5 an extra 36% damage to opponents affected by Pyro or Electro. It will be team specific though, so it won't work in teams where you're trying to melt or vape with him because opponents won't already be affected by Pyro. If you're a new or free to play player and don't have the options I mentioned, you could always go with the quest weapon Moonweaver's Dawn. It gives 27.6% attack and 20% burst damage. If you need elemental mastery, the craftable Iron Sting gives you 165 elemental mastery as well as 24% elemental damage. Now for my favourite part of the video, let's talk about teams. I'm most excited for the Hexencircle buffs, so we'll talk about those first. When there are 2 Hexencircle members in the team, which there will be with Mona and Durin, Mona's normal and charge attacks give her a stack. She can get 3 stacks, and every time another teammate triggers vape, it consumes a stack and gets a damage buff. Her normal and charge attacks also extend her omen to a total of 8 seconds, so make sure you use 4 normal attacks after a burst. Her C1 is buffed to give more reaction damage, her C2 also gives 80 elemental mastery to the team now, C4 now gives Hexencircle members 15% crit damage, and her C6 buffs her charge attacks. Basically, you can have Mona on field driving the team, Durin dealing pyro damage off field, Shalonen for her buffs, and then in the flex slot you can go with whoever you want. Albedo for another source of damage as well as his elemental mastery and damage buffs, Farina or Yelan for another source of damage without interfering with Durin's vapes. You could even go with an Ether. There's also the option to have Durin on field with Farina, Mona and Bennett. You will need Bennett's C6 to convert Durin's normals to pyro though. Give Durin 4-piece Marechaussee and you're good to go. With 2 Hexencircle members, Fischl and the on-fielder get 22.5% attack after triggering Overloaded. Fischl and the on-fielder get 90 Elemental Mastery after triggering Electro Charged or Lunar Charged. When Fischl's at C6, these buffs are doubled. This means you could go with Durin, Fischl, Chevreuse and then any Electro or Pyro DPS on-field. Klee got some buffs to make a charge attack stronger and a normal attack string less clunky, so she'll work here. Alternatively, you could go Durin, Fischl and Nether and then a Hydro DPS on field. Raze has got some much needed buffs. The damage dealt by the Electro attacks in his burst are now increased by 70% of his attack. If you have 2 Hexencircle characters in the team, when his Electro sigils exceed the limit, he'll deal an instance of AoE Electro damage and restore 7 energy. At C6, every time he gets a sigil, he'll get 3 instead of 1, and consuming sigils gives him 10% crit rate and 50% crit damage for 15 seconds. Basically, he's good now. This is a Durin video, so if you want a Durin and Razor team, throw in Chevreuse and Fischl, but it would be best for Razor if you use Bennett instead of Durin. Sucrose also got some buffs. After using a skill, she buffs the team's normal attacks, charge attacks, plunge attacks, skills, and burst by 5.7%. After using a burst, she'll buff them by 7.1%. Basically, use a skill and burst, and buff most instances of damage by about 13%. At C6, if a burst absorbs an element, she'll buff the team's damage of that element by an extra 8.5% too. For teams with Durin, you could go Mono Pyro and Sucrose is more or less equal to Kazuha now. Maybe better with Thrilling Tales. Vape teams would be the same to be honest, just swap Kazuha out for her. Oh, by the way, Venti's a DPS now. His normals are converted into Anemo damage and they increase the duration of his burst by 1 second up to a total of 2 seconds. When his burst is active, on-fielders that trigger a swirl reaction have their damage increased by 50% and Venti's burst will deal more damage. Give him Durin, Farazan and Bennett and probably farm a 4-piece Desert Pavilion Chronicle too. Albedo's the one I'm looking forward to though. When there are 2 Hexencircle characters in the team, Albedo's skill essentially creates a ghost version of itself. This means it can't be destroyed by enemies. Also, he buffs the team's normal attack, charge attack, plunge attack, skill and burst damage by 4% for every 1000 defense he has up to a maximum of 12%, so 3000 defense. For other Hexencircle characters, it is 10% damage for every 1000 defense up to a maximum of 30%. His skill damage is also buffed by the ghost flowers I mentioned earlier. His C1 gives extra defense now as well, so he's a good pick for your free constellation. What all this means for Albedo is he can work well with Shalonen as a Geo pair to drop into almost any team, or he's just a nice solo flex when you don't know who to put in the last slot. With Durin you could go with Navia and Bennett, Shalonen and a Pyro DPS, or Nuvalet and Farina. Using Lauma instead of Farina will be a strong team too. Mualani's gonna pair well with Durin. We've got Shalonen as the healer for her buffs and shred, and then you can go with either of Mona or Albedo in the flex slot. Mona gives HP from Hydro Resonance as well as a Roman buff. Albedo gives another source of damage and an Elemental Mastery and damage buff. Next up we've got the Dragon combo of Durin and Kinich paired with Emily and Iansan. If you want the team to do more damage, give Emily Unfinished Reverie and Durin Deepwood. If you want Durin to do more damage, swap it the other way round. You could even play him with Chaska when your Moeka is preoccupied. I'm looking forward to trying him with Ito to see if he can be the missing piece we've needed for a long time, especially with the Albedo buffs. Overall, Durin's the most excited I've been for a unit in a long time. I love using less popular characters, so it's fun that he's bringing a lot of them back into the mix, especially with Albedo, who's one of my favourite characters in the entire game. I'm going to be dropping another video over the weekend looking at units getting buffed in the next patch. That's not just the Hexencircle buffs, but also units that generally benefits from all the new additions and changes in the next patch. Subscribe if you want to see that one. Also join the Discord because we've got a few Durin mains in there, and take it easy.